how today's child works hard for a living.
I'm Stephen Wood, and we're here outside the headquarters of the TUC. The Trade Union Congress was started in the 1860s and represents currently about 6.5 million trade union members. And it's trade unions, employment relations, pay systems and so on that I've been studying for the best part of 45 years. How many people are represented by trade unions? How many people are not represented? Is it true that interpersonal relationships are more important than the way you design jobs? Is the pay system not as important as we think? Have modern forms of flexibility, such as flexi-time or job sharing, have these things increased or decreased in the recession? And if they've increased, has it helped manage the recession? One of the great sources of data that I've been using now for 20 years is the Workplace Employment Relations Survey. These surveys concentrate on employment relations and began primarily with trade union studies, pay systems and the core of industrial relations. But they've developed now so that they include a much wider agenda. There's now been 6 of these, which means that we are able to map the evolution of employment relations or industrial relations very accurately, whilst at the same time keeping abreast of policy developments and issues in society. For example, work-life balance is now much more important than it was 20 years ago. One of the fundamental questions that people often ask about work is whether pay is a really big motivator or whether it's the jobs themselves. What we do know is that job design is very important, but that is not necessarily at the expense of pay. We can also answer the question, does performance-related pay have an effect on satisfaction? And the answer is no. Firstly, because it's trumped by job design. Secondly, some performance-related pay systems are better than others, and some will indeed increase satisfaction. But even those have the problem that those that don't get a pay increase will be dissatisfied. The biggest trend, of course, over the last 20 years has been the decline of trade union membership and trade union representation. The implication, of course, is that many workers don't have a voice in industry and/or their pay is determined unilaterally by management. There's no pay bargaining. But then the question is, have there been alternative voices emerged, non-union representation and so on? And there have been. But whether they give the same independence and same sense of fairness as trade unions is, of course, a very big question. There's more white-collar workers, more managers, less manufacturing. These are well-known trends. But ultimately, it's got something to do with 2 things, really. One is, if you like, taste of youngsters. Youngsters just not into trade unions. And also the role of trade unions in getting to members, potential members I should say, is important, and they perhaps haven't done as well as they could do. Is it true that firms are taking family-friendly practices more seriously? What I was able to do was develop a measure of family-friendly firms, and what this shows is that the firms that use one particularly family-friendly practice, like job sharing, are more likely to use another one, like giving subsidies for childcare or time off for elder care. We're able to then ask questions like, does it lead to higher performance? And the answer is yes, but it's qualified. Where firms were showing their commitment through having these practices, it was being reciprocated by a high level of commitment by the employees, which was then leading to their performance. The use of these practices, the family-friendly practices, is on the increase, but not to a great extent. So there's still many firms that don't, or workplaces that don't have these practices. The latest survey will be completed this year, and the big innovation is to ask questions about the economic situation facing the workplace, and particularly how they have suffered or taken advantage of the recession. I think we will find that firms have not been so quick to shed labour as they did in the past. And some of the reasons for this would be that they value human capital more than they did before, whereas they don't want to lose skills, particularly in manufacturing, because they never come back. The whole area of employment relations is a really important topic. It affects people's pay levels, it affects their sense of well-being, it affects employment performance. If we're interested in happiness at work and well-being, I think it's vital that we do monitor these trends and we look for relationships to either correct prejudices or confirm common sense.